Hi, I'm Barbara Chris.
And I'm Clarissa,
We're two friends, entrepreneurs, and experts in our field.
joining forces and talking all about life, business, tools for success, and more.
So, without further ado, here's to Dope Women.
One.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Here's to Dope Women. I'm here with my beautiful co host, Clarissa, and we've got a great episode for you. We're going to talk about burnout. And it's so interesting because when we talk or hear about that word, we just think sometimes it's just stressed. But we're here to share with you what burnout is, the three characteristics of burnout. We're going to share with you our burnout even. And then at the end, we're going to close this off with ways to deal with burnout so that you can keep going and going after the goals that you want to get to. So without any further ado, Miss Clarissa, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Fighting off a little bit of a cold, so but it is what it is. I feel like everybody is kind of off and on getting sick. So
I know it's interesting. I feel like it seems like in my family right now, it's going around. And so far, my son and I have been good. We've been able to like deflect, I think. So, but I feel for you. I know it sucks right
And
now.
it's kind of funny that we're doing an episode on burnout where I'm just like, I need extra coffee.
I need some rest. I know. Speaking of which, burnout. So when you think or when you hear that word, what comes to mind when you think of burnout?
Well, to me, I mean, it's either you can have, burnout when it comes to work, but then I think there's a lot of burnout when it comes to your own personal life as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think moms experience it a lot, right? Even if you're a stay-at-home mom,
Yep.
I feel like it's just like a huge overwhelm and it can be kind of hard to deal with. And I think it's also very common. I don't think that it gets talked about enough. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm excited about this episode.
I know. I actually like how you said that it doesn't get talked about enough. I think many times it's like a badge of shame if you admit I'm burnt out. Like somehow you just don't have what it takes, right?
Yeah, no, I
I
think
mean,
that's like super common is people are not willing to, ask for help or willing to admit when they're feeling overwhelmed and that
mhm.
maybe they might be, lacking.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just kind of be straight with it. So this weekend, on Saturday, I hit a limit. I realized I was burnt out. And it's so interesting because when I look at the definition of burnout, so I have to share this because I think we were talking about how most of the time when you think of burnout, you just think that I'm just stressed, but there's three specific characteristics of burnout, what that means. And so I'm going to go ahead and share if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So the three characteristics of burnout, the first one is that it's an emotional, like you're emotionally exhausted. So I'm like, okay, most people are probably like, yep, been there. So I was there on Saturday for sure. And then the second is like depersonalization, or you feel like you're detached,
Hmm.
from whatever it is that you're working. So usually it's with work, things like that. And then lastly, it's like a decreased sense of personal accomplishment. So, you know, when you're doing, let's say you're going after this, kind of at an unsustainable pace. Let's say you're working really hard, but you're feeling emotionally exhausted. You're starting to feel detached, and then you're starting to feel maybe even cynical, and that you're not achieving anything. I
Hmm.
was there Saturday. I like totally hit the wall. And anyway, I share that because it was one of those things where I was like, wow, because I pushed myself. I was sharing, I think in our previous episode that I kind of like it's a bad habit that I will push so hard and kind of fail to see these signs that like I'm at the point of just being totally burnt out.
Hmm.
And anyway, so I share that because it's a timely episode because I really had to step back, take a breather, and then I think we'll get into more of the tips for sort of dealing with it, but how I dealt with it just this past weekend. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Did
no,
you?
I can totally see how that can happen with you because you have it, like I've always said you have an amazing work ethic,
Uh-huh.
but also too I can see where, you probably overwork yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, my God, I was just, it's like so interesting because I've had so many people tell me that I have a great work ethic, and in fact, I feel like that's like even my own badge of honor. I love the fact that I have great work ethic and people can depend on me. But I think what happens on the opposite side, on the extreme side, is
Hi,
that
I'm Barbara
it's
Chris.
really
And
hard
I'm
for me to
Clarissa.
We're two
stop, and I
friends,
feel like,
entrepreneurs,
not
and
wanting,
experts in
or
our field.
feeling like I don't want to
Joining
let other
forces and
people
talking all
down.
about life,
And so I
business,
will
tools
push
for
myself,
success, and more.
beyond,
So, without further ado,
like the max
here's
for
to
me.
dope
And then
women.
to the point where it's like, oh man, I just hit a wall and I'm done. Like I have to like totally just like stop. So,
Mhm.
anyway, so when we talk about those three characteristics of burnout, I don't know, maybe you can share with me and then with us, for you, like what was an example of where you've hit like burnout and just kind of like, okay, this is too much. I got to stop.
Well, definitely, I feel like I experience burnout in two ways.
Hmm.
When it comes to the three is I definitely experience it when I overbook myself. So
Hmm.
I really have to get into the habit. And I think I've done a pretty good job. I still need to work on it a little bit more
Hmm.
where I'll book myself two really big like hair, like I call them like projects, right? Where it's basically like it's either like a blonding service where
Mm.
I'm just putting in like a million foils and then we're doing a root melt and we're doing this. And it's like a 4 hour long process. And I'll
Mm.
sometimes, for some reason, I will book myself like two of those in one day. And
Mm.
then I don't schedule enough time to eat lunch. So, and then I get off work and I'm just like, okay, I'm done for like the entire week.
Yeah.
So I definitely noticed that I do that when I overbook myself. Also too, there's a lot of times where I will not book myself a lunch. So I really I'm getting better at not overbooking myself, but I need to get better at booking myself a lunch so that way I'm not like back to back to back.
Right.
Another reason or another way that I do feel burnout in my job is if I'm not creating, if I feel
Mm.
very uninspired. So say I'm just doing kind of a lot of, root touch-ups constantly, or, I'm not, using the creative side of my brain. Like I feel like I've been doing this for 10 years that I get kind of on this like autopilot. So if I'm just doing a lot of just like simple things that really doesn't challenge my brain, I definitely realize that I'm getting very burnt out and I'm like, okay, I need someone to come in and we're going to do like a transformation, right? Like
Yeah.
I need something to kind of, because definitely when I get into these like projects, I really have to kind of formulate right. And I'm, looking at the hair, seeing where it falls, see where I need
Yeah.
to place things. And so that's where my creative side comes out. And that's when I feel really inspired. And when
Mhm.
I don't have that for a little while, I'm just kind of like, oh, this is so boring.
Yeah. What's really interesting is the fact that when we were doing our research for this topic for burnout, that I did not realize, like you said, that being uninspired or just like under challenged, that's actually a form of burnout. Like when
Hmm.
you like exactly how you described it, right? Because when you think about those characteristics that I shared at the top of our episode, being emotionally exhausted, kind of disconnected, feeling like you're not accomplishing anything, that can happen when you're not being challenged, just as well as when you're being, let's say, we're working at a unsustainable pace on the opposite, right? Being overloaded. It can actually happen when you're under challenged. And so like for you, you're saying how like when you're not being creative, you're not being just like challenged. It's just like you kind of go to this zone of like, just it feels like you're, I don't know, like this black hole kind of like, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Um,
Hmm.
it's interesting when I was thinking about that, when I was in my corporate job, towards the end, I would definitely say, well, I didn't realize it then, but now in hindsight, I definitely had that form of burnout there, that I was just under challenged. And this is what was really interesting. I think this is what really helped me also make the jump to leave, is because I felt like my choice there was being kind of staying where I was. I had a very safe job. It wasn't challenging me, I think, in the way that was allowing me to thrive, like creatively, even like from leadership perspectives. I wasn't being challenged, but I felt like it was either to stay there, or if I wanted to like step up, let's say, make the move to management or higher management, that maybe I could get it in those positions. But I also knew that it came at a price, because I was already commuting 2 hours a day. I was already putting long ass hours. So like it'd be like easily 12 hours a day that I was between commuting and work. And my thought process was, and of course my son was young at that time. And my thought process was, okay, so I can either like step into more of a challenging position that might invigorate me again, but I will 100% never be home, like ever.
Yeah.
And that cost wasn't worth it for me. And that helped me also realize, okay, there's something different for me that I need to go after. But I can relate to that under challenged burnout because that's essentially what happened to me. I was so unfulfilled. I felt like my purpose was just wasn't there. I mean, I respected my job and the people I worked with and the people I helped, but it just wasn't enough anymore. It wasn't enough to sustain me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So what were you doing yesterday? It was yesterday, right? What were
oh,
you like, as far as work goes, were you like just working on, a project and it was just taking a long time?
oh God, it was everything. It's so funny. It's like this accumulation of everything. I was going through like client files, I was updating things, I was getting prepared for this week, like all my appointments for this week. I was kind of gearing up for, this group coaching that I normally just do one-on-one coaching. So I started this whole like group coaching kind of program. It's something that I would like to keep doing continuously in addition to my one-on-one. And it takes a lot of effort, like this, right? When you're an entrepreneur, in our case, a solopreneur, like we are everything. We are like the jack of all trades. We're the marketer, we're the person, we're everything.
Yeah.
We're the finance person, all of that, right? Um, and just trying to how do I share this information? How do I share this in a way that actually would be interesting to to people, to my ideal client? As well as having, have my nephew in town and, trying to keep that balanced and then have a personal life and all that. Saturday, I remember I woke up, I started working. As I normally do, I get up, I exercise, I start working, do my thing. And I just hit this wall. I was like, I need to stop. I felt like I was going to cry because I was just feeling like I couldn't accomplish anything like substantial.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like I was pushing all like a million different things, like, 1 inch ahead, whereas I just needed to really push one thing like 2 feet ahead and feel accomplished. I felt like I was just not. And so I stopped and I went for a walk. I went for a hike. Like I basically stopped myself and I was like, okay, I need to do the one thing right now that's going to make me feel really good, allow me to take a breath. And that's what I did. I just like stopped, like I said, took a hike. And that's when I realized on my hike, I was like, girl, you are burnt out right now. Yeah, chill.
And you're like, I'm literally going to be on a podcast tomorrow talking about burnout as I'm actually experiencing it in real time.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And in a way, it was good that we were going through the process of researching this topic because it made me more aware for myself that yeah, that I need to start being a little bit more diligent on kind of keeping up with the signs of when this is coming. Like if I feel like I can foresee I'm going to get burnt out if I don't like course correct in some way. I don't know. What
Yeah.
about you? Like when you feel like you've hit like your limit like that, what helps you? Like what is your go-to thing that kind of helps you to deal with burnout?
Um, Honestly, I think just, it sounds weird, but I think just resting as much as possible.
Mhm.
Um, and it can be really hard for me to do that though, too, because then I start feeling guilty if I start resting.
Right?
Like if I'm just like relaxing and, I'm like either like reading or I like to listen to podcasts a lot.
Hmm.
Or if I'm just like sitting on the couch, kind of watching TV,
Hmm.
um, it's like I'm really trying to rest, but then I start thinking about all the things that I need to be doing. And then I
Right.
start getting like feeling really guilty.
Yeah.
So I mean that, or like, maybe I'll look up some kind of recipe, like a new recipe.
Hmm.
Um, and then like that way it's like, I'm actually doing something,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? So I feel like I'm being productive, but then I'm also doing something that I love. Right. So,
Right.
cooking to me is like a hobby. So I feel like it's really hard for me to like actually rest. Um, so it's almost more productive for me to kind of get over that burnout feeling when I'm still doing something, but I don't feel like I'm like getting tired doing it, if that
Right.
makes any sense. It's not so much challenging my mind, it's just something that's more fun for me.
Yeah.
So, and I think that what you said is kind of realizing that you are getting burned out
Mm-hmm.
is something that people really need to realize is, because maybe they'll start just kind of feeling like they're really irritable and they're kind of snappy, or they're, things like that, where they're just like, I think people kind of need to stop and analyze and be like, okay, what's going on in my body right
Yep.
now? Okay, I think I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I'm feeling a little burnt out.
Yep. Yeah. One of the things I do is I notice I start to withdraw.
Mhm.
And it's not on purpose, for sure. It's not on purpose. It's like a coping mechanism. I feel like, in a way, I'm in my craziness, I think, like protecting other people. I'm just trying to get things done. And again, right, it's like you don't want to let other people down. So whether it's a project I'm working on, whether it's my own business, I'm trying to just get things done to the point where I feel satisfied, which, I mean, we can be honest here. We never are satisfied, right? We can like work till, we're whatever. We can work forever
Yeah.
basically and never be satisfied. And I think that that's what I start to do is I feel like, okay, well, let me just kind of do all these things and I'll feel good with it. And then I'll stop and then kind of go on with whatever else I need to do. And that never happens. And so I notice, and this is something that's just come with counseling for sure, but then grow, just I think life and dealing with other people, that of the things that they've noticed about me is that I tend to withdraw. And so when I notice I start to withdraw, I'm a little bit better at that now. I'll see it, and I'm more. I think I'm able to be more vulnerable now with the people who are close to me in my circle, right? And I'll be able to share, like, yeah, I'm kind of struggling right now, as opposed to just like holding up and then becoming an island, like I used to totally do that. And then my burnout would be not only would be more severe, but it would actually last longer too. Like I'd get into that pit of like feeling like I'm not accomplishing anything and being detached. It would take me longer to get out of it. Whereas now that I can see it, I think see it for what it is, and I'm able to communicate with, not with everyone, but with more people, like I said, in my circle, I can bounce back a little quicker. So, on Saturday, when I totally found myself in this like pit, and it was just kind of random. My mom called me, and I used to never really share stuff like this with her, and I totally talked to her about it. I talked to her, I talked to David, and then I started like to bounce back. I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better. And then I don't know, like yesterday, I was able to do a little bit more. I felt more productive. And I feel like, okay, I'm back. So a day, it was like a day of just being like, I was kind of in the pits.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I kind of experienced that a little bit this past weekend because I was, tax season. So I was working on my taxes.
Oh God, that's
I'm
another
like,
thing.
oh, like I have a tax appointment this weekend. And it's just like when I'm looking too much at numbers and I'm, adding and doing this and doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
I realized I was like, okay, I need to take a break. I haven't eaten all day. So like I need to go get some food, I need to take a little bit of a break and then kind of, get back to it.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. It's interesting because, we talked about there was the three characteristics of burnout, but then there's also the three types that we were just talking about, where it's like the overload or being under challenged. And the third one is like neglect, like you have no sense of purpose, which is interesting too. And I think that, for those of you listening in to burnout and you find yourself feeling like in this pit of like you're not accomplishing anything, you can actually experience burnout that way too. And I think at least the good news though is that we're going to share with you some ways to help you deal with that, to help bounce back. And like I know, like Clarissa and I talk about this stuff all the time. In fact, I have an appointment on what, Thursday?
yeah.
We're
Uh-huh.
probably going to have our own session of working through this stuff. And so, but today we're going to share that with you here as far as the tips that we have for how to kind of deal with burnout and keep going. I don't
Yes.
know. What do you think, Clarissa? What is if you're thinking about ways to deal with burnout, what comes to mind for you? What is like one of your go-to things?
Well, I would say like I think one of the biggest thing that people don't really do is they don't prioritize rest, or they don't prioritize things that they like to do as far as like hobbies. Like
Mm,
if like for me, like I like to cook. Sometimes it's like I do feel like I like have to cook, but then there's times where I feel like I want to cook. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's very important to every single week, if there's something that you like to do, whether it's read a book or go for a hike or, do things like that. If you're, I don't know, knitting or whatever you want,
Yeah.
some sort of a project on your house. I think that every week you need to prioritize that somewhere in your schedule. And I feel like if you don't actually write it in on your schedule and you don't make it a priority, you're not going to get it done.
Mm.
And it's going to feel like something that you like kind of almost feel obligated, like, oh, like, okay, I guess. But as soon as you start doing it, I think that you're going to kind of get out of the, of like almost like feeling, how do I say, not like obligated to do it, but I just think that prioritizing it is something that's very important to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned cooking, and I think a lot of it has to do with perspective, and I think the reason why you're doing it. So, for example, with my nephew here and my son, and I love cooking for them, but there's a totally different vibe. I think I was sharing with you. I felt like I was in the kitchen for 5 hours just
Yeah.
cooking for these kids. I was like cooking and cleaning. I was like, I swear I went through all the utensils, all the dishes twice between the cooking and the eating and the cooking and the eating again. And like I said, as much as I love doing that for them, that's a different feeling than if, let's say, I went to the grocery store and had this amazing recipe that I wanted to try, and I went to go get my, the ingredients. I came home and I made the dish. It's like that's more like a hobby type look on cooking for me. But when I'm doing like cooking for those two 6 foot plus boys, it's like that is like just function. I'm just like trying to live. I'm trying to live.
Yeah. You're in like survival mode at that point.
Yeah. So yeah, I had food burnout yesterday. It's like I was
Yeah.
over it. But you're right. So sometimes like making the time for self-care, which is I know is something that I'm having to work on, and making that a priority more regularly, versus like more of as like a necessity when I get to the point like, oh my God, I need some time. I need to make it more regular. That's a good one. I think
Yeah.
that's I think something that we can all do. We just have to take a moment to think about, okay, well, what would feel good? What do I like to do? What do I enjoy doing? And then, like you said, blocking the time to
Yeah.
actually do it is
Yeah.
key. Yeah.
For sure.
Um, I like that one. I like that one also, like I said, because I'm always struggling with taking time for myself. But I think that another one that's helpful too, or another tip or strategy to deal with, burnout or even to try to prevent it is learning how to say no. That's a hard one. I mean, do you have a hard time saying no?
Um, I used to. So
Hmm.
I used to, if someone was like, "Hey, do you have time on Wednesday at, 10 o'clock?" And I'm purposely trying to take Wednesday off because I'm
Mm.
working, like 5 days already and I don't want to work another sixth day.
Yeah.
I used to just be like, "Okay, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'll take you on Wednesday."
Right.
Now I'm getting a little bit better at saying like, "No, sorry, I'm not in that day," or just saying, "No, sorry, I don't have anything that day. Can you
Hmm.
do Thursday?" So, I've definitely it's taken some time to get better at it, but I've definitely gotten way better at saying no, but like in a nice way.
Right. Like no with an option.
Yes. Yeah.
No, but how about this instead? And just, yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one. I think for, a lot of people can probably relate to having a hard time saying no because they feel bad or you don't want to hurt someone. And I'd say for me too, it's come with time, like being able to say no or to protect my boundaries, whether it's just like time, like you said, if I'm trying to not work on a certain day. Because I feel like I'm coaching like all the time, it seems like even Saturdays. So far, I've been able to like sort of preserve my Sunday, but I find myself I'm trying to accommodate my clients because they have lives too, right? And so sometimes things come up, but I have to be careful. Like if I know that there are certain days or times that I want blocked, I'll put it in my schedule. So like you said, using my schedule, like blocking time, that's been a something that's helped me too, as far as
Mhm.
being able to say no. Like when it's in my book, if either I'm planning to do something or I'm planning to take the day off or what have you, when I have it in there, it makes it a lot easier for me to say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not available that day. But what about, like you said, what about this day? Then I can do it like that. That's been a good help for me to have like a tool, like something to kind of lean on versus just thinking like, I'm just saying no and I'm being mean, you
Yeah.
know? Um,
Yeah.
what about anything else when you think about dealing with burnout? Um, as far as like how to deal, what comes to mind for you?
Um, I think it's also very important to kind of go over things and analyze, first off, what you like doing in your business. So for me, um, keeping the salon completely clean,
Mm-hmm.
I I definitely have to prioritize that.
Mm-hmm.
So every couple of weeks I'll schedule in a day where maybe it's like half a day where I'm cleaning, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
when I come home, it was when we first moved here, it was really hard to take care of the salon and take care of the house. Take care of the salon, come
Oh,
take care of the house, clean the house. I mean, just doing the floors alone takes like 2 hours, right?
oh
So
my
I'm like,
God.
okay. I noticed that I was getting very burnt out. So what I did is I'm like, okay, what can I outsource? So we hired
Oh.
cleaners. And to me, I think of hiring cleaners to come and clean your house. That's like a very like that's a luxury for
Mm-hmm.
sure. But to me it was so worth it to do
Yeah.
because I mean there's some weeks where I work 6 days and
Mm-hmm.
then on my one day off I have to clean the entire house and I'm like
Right.
scrubbing my showers. It's just like no, like that's not what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that um, scheduling things like that, seeing what you can outsource is a big deal.
Yeah. Delegating.
Delegating.
That's a hard one. And I think a lot of times people struggle with that because they're like, well, if I'm not doing it, no one's going to do it as good as I do it. So they
Yeah.
don't want to see it get done. And I think even like with, like with my son and kind of delegating things to him, that was something I had to deal with too, is that, of course, if he's learning to do, whatever chore it is that I'm having him do, he's not going to do it as good as me, but he'll never have the chance if I don't let him, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've had to let go of a lot of that, maybe just wanting things to be done like perfectly or a certain way or whatever. I'm just letting him do that and take some of that pressure off of me. Like if he feeds the dogs and I'm watching him feed the dogs, I'm like, okay, I don't mix the dog food like that.
Right?
You know what I mean? Like, but the dogs are getting fed, so shoot, like let it go. But that's a good one, delegating, and finding the ability or kind of letting go of maybe some of the things that we want to control, and letting other people kind of take the role there that when they can, when it makes sense. That's a good one.
Yeah.
What about like, okay, so here's one that when we were doing, I was doing some research also on burnout was hobbies, pursue, whether it's pursue hobbies, like maybe hobbies you've had that you've kind of just like let go, or maybe a new hobby that's kind of different from what you do at work. And I was like thinking, okay, what are some, like hobbies that I do? And I think a lot of them kind of, or at least the hobbies that I do, they kind of tie into what I do for a living, at least with nutrition. I like to go hiking. I like to do physical things. Those are kind of like my hobbies. But I was like, okay, is there anything that I used to do that I've stopped that maybe I can try picking back up? And I was like, ages ago, my sister, she bought me like these knitting needles with some yarn. This is like, oh my God, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that. And for a while, I remember I was like making these like really basic scarves, but it was so fun. It was one of those like things like you could just sit down and almost mindlessly do. And like before you knew it, I'd have like this long ass scarf. So like I'm thinking, I got to find those needles and do some knitting. Maybe I can make like some pants or something. I don't
Yeah. Some
know.
knitted pants.
Yeah, or something like fun. I'm like, okay, I remember doing the scarves. That was kind of cool. And in fact, there was like one year for Christmas, I like made scarves for like my gifts, and I stopped
Yeah.
doing it. I think I got to do that again. That would be a nice hobby. That's like totally different than from what I do day to day, and could maybe even be some like creative, get some creative juices flowing too. Maybe challenge me. I don't know. Knitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think finding hobbies, like I said, cooking for me is one of them. I like to do like home decorating. There was like one Sunday where I just randomly decided to do an entire makeover on my bathroom, right? So
Oh,
I'm
I
like
remember
hanging
that.
shelves, in my bathroom and stuff. So I think that finding a hobby, something that's going to take you away from, the stress of your job or the stress
Mhm.
of your kids or, whatever, ask your baby daddy or your husband to watch the kids while you,
Yeah.
even just go out to brunch with your friends or something, something that's going to kind of take your mind off of it. And I think just making it a habit of doing that every week is really
Yeah.
important, to just find something that you love to do.
Yeah, no, it's true. And like you said, sometimes just taking the a little bit of like a window or making a window of time, just for something like that, just to kind of break up the either routine or maybe even the monotony of things, right? When you just get so stuck in like all this day-to-day stuff that you're doing. And I'm saying that because I'm actually speaking to myself too, because I get caught up in all of that, like just that just the rigor of like these routines like day in and day out, and sometimes you just need to like, whoa, I need a break and just like come up for air a little bit here. And then I think also, I don't want to forget saying this, is that when you do that, at least when I do that, I take a step back and kind of breathe. I'm actually able to see and realize that I actually have made a lot of accomplishments. I've actually accomplished a lot let's say this past week. I've done a lot of things where when you're like in the middle of it and you don't come up for air, it's hard to see that. You just feel like I'm not doing anything. I'm not getting shit done, right? And then
Yeah.
I think that leads to that frustration, at least for me, that frustration that I have after a while. I'm like, oh God, I feel like I'm not getting anything done. Like, what the hell am I doing? And then it like the spiral begins. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people when they're experiencing, burnout or overwhelm is because they feel like they just don't have enough time in the day to, like, how am I supposed to find the time in the day to go, walk around the block for 15 minutes and kind of clear my head or, find 15 minutes to, sit and meditate. Like, how am I supposed to find the time to do that? Well,
Right.
I think it's really important to, um, kind of do like a time management, schedule for your day, or like say you're working on your website. I
Yeah.
remember you saying that you were working on
Mm.
your website and it was like overwhelming. It was a lot to do. So I definitely feel like if you're really in it and you're there and you're concentrating, you can probably work on that for hours, right?
Right.
And then you get done, like me yesterday with taxes. It's like it was like all my papers were out, everything, I was like in it.
Yeah.
And I probably spent a little too much time because I had all these other things that I had on my, list of things that I wanted to do that day. And I felt just mentally exhausted to where I didn't want to do any of those other things because I'm already exhausted and I'm
Yep.
just tired and my brain is just not functioning right. So I what I should have done is I should have time blocked. So I should have set a timer, and this actually really truly works, and
Yeah.
it helps with things that you don't want to do too. Is like if you just set a timer for say an hour and say, okay, for this next hour, I'm going to dedicate that time to working on my website or to working on my taxes. And then when
Mhm.
that timer is up, that's like kind of like that ding, 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 like, okay, cool. Like you're
You're
relieved of
done.
that. Yeah, you're done. And then,
Mhm.
maybe go to the next thing.
Mm.
I do that all the time. I mean, there's times where I have a huge basket of laundry. I absolutely hate folding and putting away laundry.
Like, I
I
have to do it or we're gonna stink.
I hate it so much. I mean, I can throw it in the washer, I can throw it in the dryer, no problem. But when it comes to folding my laundry and putting it away, I cannot stand it. And it
Oh,
will
I know.
take me an hour if I'm just like sitting there and I'm watching TV and I'm like folding laundry, I'm trying to make it like a nice experience. I
It's
will
fine.
literally take 45 minutes to fold and put away laundry.
You're like, uh-uh.
So what I do is I set a timer for 5 minutes. And
Oh.
and so it helps me because I'm like, okay, I'm on a timer. So I get things done. And does it take me 5 minutes? No, it probably takes me closer to maybe 10.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I do is like I will set a timer, I'll get it done quicker. I may
Mm-hmm.
not get it done in the 5 minutes timer, but at least I'll get it 90% of it done. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like my timer went off. I'm like almost done. Cool. Same thing, if I just get done cooking in the kitchen,
Yeah.
I'll, I mean, my entire kitchen is like a complete mess. Like I'm not
Right.
super messy, but definitely, I think I've said this before, my kitchen just is like a disaster
Like
zone.
things everywhere.
Yeah. So I'm like, great. it's going to take me an hour just to clean all this and clean all the dishes and put everything away. And so what I'll do is I'll set like a 30-minute timer. And so it's like this process of like, it's this thing in your head. If I'm on a time limit, I gotta hurry.
Right.
So
You're not gonna start going like this.
yeah. Right. Oh, I'm just going to stop and scroll on social media. No, like you have this like
Yep.
thing in the back of your mind where you're on a timer, you're on a time limit. You got to get this done.
Yeah.
So, okay, what does time management have to do with burnout? Is if you feel like you don't have enough time
Mm,
to do the things that you want to do, to meditate, to read a book, to go for a walk, to knit.
mhm.
If you feel like you don't have enough time, it's because you're spending too much time on the things that are going to make you very overwhelmed and the things that are going to
Right.
burn you out. So I think that if you do time, if you're really good at time management and you set aside, a good chunk of time, but maybe not too much time, to get some stuff done, then you can feel like you're actually accomplishing things. And then
Yeah.
you have that time to do the things that you need to do that's going to be good for your mental health.
Yeah. It's like that work-life balance thing that I know it's like this kind of ambiguous thing that people talk about. Work-life balance, like what the hell is that? I know it's different for everybody, whatever that means. But oftentimes, like you said, it takes us to, really manage our time. I think it's just imperative for most people. We have to manage our time. We're working, we have families, we have kids, we have responsibilities, we have hobbies, all those things, right? We have our own things that we want to do for ourselves. That's a lot to be juggling. And if we don't manage our time effectively, you can see how easily things can just like get like off kilter, off balance, right? When we just put all of our time and focus into this one area, then all of a sudden there's like 10 other things over here that are just like, hey, like what's up? Like what's going on over here? You haven't like paid any attention to us at all, and things like that. So, managing time is huge. I think along those lines too, which was helpful for me, which by the way, let me say, I really like that time blocking thing. In fact, I think I'm going to use that for some of the things I've been procrastinating on, i.e. taxes like you.
Yeah.
So, but is when you do, let's say, make let's say a to-do list. I think something for me that I've really noticed is helping me is I'm really selective of what is put on my to-do list for the day. Like it's tempting to make my to-do list 40 things long, and there's no way in hell I'm going to get 40 things done. So I might have like a first draft where I might list a lot of the important things that need to get done, and then I'll pull from that, and I can kind of say, okay, well on Monday, I'll do these things, and then on Tuesday I'll do these things, and it might just be three things, but I'll list the things that must get done. And then
Definitely.
let's say if I get those done and I still have like the energy to do it, I might get on, some of the things that are kind of like the nice to get done items, and I'll do those. But my focus is on like the must do's, and I'll get like I said, 2, 3 things done. And it feels great. Like, okay, I've accomplished that, and then I'm done. And then I can kind of move on from there. So that's been a huge help for me too, is really, really focusing on and being specific with my to-do list and not just putting like everything on there like like a kind of like a garbage list type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's really important to do like a good just brain dump, because
Yeah.
you think in your head of like, oh crap, I need to do this. Okay, well, I need to go over here and do this.
Hmm.
And I have like that like ADD thing. So that's actually kind of what
Sorry.
happened.
Hmm.
That's kind of what happened yesterday is like I have in my notes like all the things that I need to get done. And it's like it's all these weird different things. Like I need to organize my pantry. I need to work on my taxes. I need
Yeah.
to wash my makeup brushes. I need to go through my clothes and see what I need to throw out. And I need
Yep.
to um batch create content for social media, right? So
God,
it's like
right?
it's all these like random things in my phone, but definitely I think that prioritizing the things that need to get done
Yes.
first, and like you said, if it's only just 3 things, that's great.
Mhm.
And if you have enough energy at the end of the day, or if you get those three things done, okay, then what else can I do?
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And then also too, I feel like if you have all these things that are on your list that you're like, crap, like I actually, and maybe say all those things seem like they're a priority.
Yeah.
I think that it's really important for people to not be afraid to ask for help. right? So like
Yep.
if your spouse, if you feel like you're taking on a lot of the stuff at home and you feel like, like I really need to go through the refrigerator and get rid of all the to-go boxes and all the
Mhm.
old food because it's trash day tomorrow, but I'm over here doing this and I'm over here taking care of the kids and I'm over here, and you're
Yep.
so overwhelmed and then your spouse like is kind of doing their own thing. I think
Yep.
it's not like don't be afraid to be like, hey, I need some help right now. I'm feeling
Mhm.
very overwhelmed. Can you help
Mhm.
me?
Yeah.
I think that there's no shame in asking other people for help. I've even asked you before, right? Because
Yeah.
like there's a social media where, I'm like, hey, like, can you post something today? Like I'm super
Mhm.
busy. I think that there's absolutely no shame in asking for help.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. And on the flip side too, this is actually something that I'm going to share. I learned in counseling, and it was actually like one of those things. It was so simple, but at the same time, like an aha moment, and it had to do with like asking for help, but on the flip side. So, for example, a lot of times, let's say you're not the one who's experiencing burnout. Maybe it's your significant other, or a friend, or business partner, or whoever, a family member, and you're feeling like helpless, like, I want to do something. I see them struggling. Like, what do I do? And I think a lot of times we feel we take on this responsibility that we need to know what to do to help them. Like, we should know how to help them, when all we have to do is really just ask them, like, what can I do to help you? And I
Yeah.
remember it was so interesting because in our session when we were talking about this, and our therapist shared with us, she's like, well, why don't you just ask? Like, instead of stressing over feeling like you need to figure out what to do, like how to help them, why don't you just ask them? I was like, oh, oh yeah. And it
Yeah.
was like this thing of it just took so much pressure off of me, and realizing like, oh, because that's what I would like, right? Like, if I need help, and I had someone who's close to me who could see that I need help, and that's what they asked me, is how can I help you? That is like an amazing, kind of like the hand being reached out, or like put out there for you for help, and however you answered, it's all up to you, but um, that's a great way to do it. So, like, on the flip side too, right? Like, if you see someone who's like on the verge of burnout, it's something that you can do, is just like, hey, what can I do to help you? And,
Yeah.
and then let you know, what can be done that's helpful. So,
Yeah. Cause that's always something that's I've kind of struggled with a little bit,
mhm.
is I'm like, I'm so independent and I don't want to ask anybody for help. Right. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that, not only maybe if you're not even asking for help or if someone is offering you help, I think that's another vulnerable thing is if someone's, hey, like, can I help you with something?
Yeah.
Say, you just cooked dinner for your entire family and then you're in the kitchen and you're trying to clean up and someone comes in and they're like, hey, can I help? Is there anything I can do to help? It's like you want to be a good host and just be like, oh no, it's okay. Like I got it. You can enjoy your time.
Yeah.
But like, no, freaking yeah, you can put away the dishes, you can
Yeah. Or
help me with
dry
it.
them, or whatever.
Yeah. So I think it's good to either, yeah, definitely either ask for help or offer
Mhm.
help or be open to receiving help too.
Yeah, exactly. So this was good. I'm glad that we talked about this. And like I said, it's so interesting that it was so timely that literally I hit my burnout wall 2 days ago.
For sure.
I had to like
Yeah.
check myself, like, or put the brakes on, and kind of like reset. I think that's the good news, though, is that, like you said, that it's common. We all experience this, and it's not anything to be ashamed of. Like, whether you need help, or you need to put the brakes on and take some time off for yourself to kind of reset. Get perspective on things again. I think that it's okay. And with even some of the tips and ideas that we have to help deal with it. And I think that's can really help people go a long way. So this was great. I'm so glad that we actually were able to touch on this topic today.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, even though you did let yourself get burnt out, you at least had, the self-awareness to realize that that it was happening, and
Yeah.
you know, you're able to switch it. And I think that there's no shame in getting burnt out. I mean, I think with the whole pandemic and everything was so overwhelming for so long. I mean, to be honest, I didn't even know what anxiety was until the pandemic happened. You know, I
Right.
didn't
I
know that
know.
feeling. I didn't know that feeling until, you know, the pandemic happened, and then I'm like overwhelmed over here and overwhelmed over here, and
Yeah.
burnt out. And so I think that it's something that is a lot more common now, even just in the last couple of years. And so I
Mm.
think that it's really great that we're kind of raising awareness to it, because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are struggling with their mental health in the last couple of years and struggling right now. And so I
Yes.
think that just being aware of it and having the things that you can do to kind of overcome it is important. So I'm really glad that we were able to talk
Yeah.
about this.
Woo woo! I know. Same here. So, you guys, if or actually before we close, is there anything else that you feel like you want to, like share, or you feel like we've, in case we forgot something that we didn't mention it yet? Did we skip anything? Because I know you guys just have to know we do our homework when we do these episodes. Like we really put our
Yeah.
thought into this. We want to share our expertise too and our own experience because that's
My whole page of
right.
notes.
We do our homework. We check the literature that's out there, some studies that are out there. And yeah, we want to make sure that we bring you guys the best information possible. So anyway, I don't know. Did you have anything else,
I
Clarissa?
don't have anything else. I pretty much was like my checklist is, you know, you
Yeah.
need to check in with yourself. You need to analyze what's stressing you out, see what you can outsource, prioritizing rest, prioritizing hobbies. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Um, hire yourself some cleaners. I think that's a great idea. Like
Yeah.
seriously, hire cleaners. Even if you have like a little one bedroom apartment, hire
Mhm.
someone to come in and clean, you know, once every 2 weeks. It's going to be so worth it.
Yeah.
And then also doing the time blocking thing, I think is really important too. I think
Yes.
that's
Time
I think
blocking.
for anything, literally just
Yep.
laundry.
Yeah, time blocking, like you said, taking time for yourself, like you said, delegating, those are all good things. Yes, good tips. I love how you always, Clarissa is like the queen of being able to summarize the episode into a nice little package for the end, for like a gift for you at the end. I love that.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, so all right. So with that, we if you love this episode, and you want to share this with your loved ones, friends, please do so. Make sure and subscribe, whether you're listening to us on any of the major podcast platforms or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure and subscribe. Was it hit the bell so that you can be notified when new episodes drop every Monday. And I guess with that, Clarissa and I are out.
Yes. Until next time.
Bye guys.
Bye.